In the 2025 track and field season, the world witnessed a brand new phenomenon in the sprinting world, as a massive group of teenage athletes managed to scrape their way into the top rankings in the men's 100. In any typical season, we might get to see a single high school or prep runner break the 10-second barrier over the 100 meters. But for 2025, we witnessed a total of 10 sub-10-second clockings from a new line of teenage superstars. Seriously, it seemed like every single week, we saw yet another sub-10 clocking from a teenage talent. And this cohort of young sprinters became so elite that at one point, the 18-year-old Maurice Gleaton managed to defeat Christian Coleman in the 100, a race that was so heated that it ended with a pretty big argument between the two. The point is, teenage talents are really starting to hit some crazy times. But there is still one athlete that is proving to be just different than everyone else. And that athlete is the 18-year-old Gout Gout. Every single time this man hits the track, there is a very high chance that you are about to see a record go down. He broke the national record in the 200 at 16 in 2024, running a time of 20.04 seconds in Brisbane. He then broke the national 200 record again at 17 in 2025, running a 20.02 in Ostrava. He then ran an absurd 1984 back in Australia, albeit just over the allowable wind limit. And then he did manage to break the 10-second barrier at the exact same competition twice. But again, the wind was just not cooperating. There are very few people with the speed, swagger, profile, and rapid improvement streak that Gout Gout currently has, and I am very happy to announce that 2026 is rapidly proving to be yet another year of crazy improvements. On February 21st, Gout achieved yet another record-breaking run in the men's 100, clocking a time of 10 seconds flat at the Dane Bird Smith competition for his season opener in Brisbane. This was not only the fastest 100 clocking ever by an Australian on Australian soil, but it now ranks him third all-time for the national top 10 list in Australia. This was another solid race that puts him in a prime position as one of the most hyped up-and-coming sprinters in the world. But upon a closer look, we see something pretty remarkable attached to this one performance, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Gout Gout is on his way to superstar levels of running. For this 100-meter dash, many recently commented that Gout's start objectively looks better than it has in previous years. And after about a week or so of analysis and breaking down this time, it is now objective. Through 60 meters, Gout achieved a time of 6.58 seconds through this opening stage, which is already a huge improvement on his previous times. But it was in the final 40 meters where Gout really starts to separate from every other athlete in his age group, and it also separates him from many of the best runners in the world, because for this final 40 meters, he achieved a split time of 3.42 seconds, which is really a world-class time. Now, 3.42 seconds is so fast for this final 40 that it actually places him well in front of many of the best sprinters in the world. Even if we go back to the 2025 World Championship final in the 100, Gout Gout is actually well ahead of most. For this men's 100 final, we saw Oblique Seville from Jamaica win gold, we saw Kishane Thompson in second, and we saw Noah Lyles get the bronze. And for this men's 100, here is the full list of final 40-meter splits. As you can see, Gout Gout's final 40 of 3.42 puts him ahead of all but 3 athletes in this race, meaning that Gout's closing speed was actually faster than Kishane Thompson, it was faster than Akani Simbine, Kayansola Ajayi, and also Gift Leotlela. And here's the ultimate crucial piece of information that really puts all of this into context, and that is that this 10-second performance was only Gout's season opener, and yet he closed faster than most during the biggest race of the year, where they are trying their best to run their fastest. Gout's closing speed really is a gift that most athletes would absolutely die to possess. But without a solid start, it will simply be impossible to catch others, such as Oblique Seville and Kishane Thompson, who regularly open their first 60s in under 6.4. But his start is improving, and he is really on his way to closing his gap step by step. Now, if we go back to one of Gout's first big races where he really reached the mainstream media, we can see that his closing speed was already pretty off the charts. I mean, this kind of separation is just ridiculous over the final 40. But how exactly does this compare to today? Well, for this race, where Gout ran a 10.17 PB back in 2024, Gout's final 40 was measured right at 3.50, which again for a 16-year-old is just bonkers. But his opening 60 was measured at approximately 6.67. Already Gout's opening stage has improved drastically, and even his closing speed continues to progress. But the fact that this was his season opener against next to no real competition on the day speaks volumes about this young man's true potential, and it also speaks volumes about how much he's already improved since we last saw him on the track. Now, one final breakdown of this race that is absolutely fascinating is the analysis of Gout's total step count. Now, in the history of the men's 100, the fastest men to ever compete famously hit a stride count of around 43 to 44 and often 45 steps. And this includes Fred Curley's 9.77, Justin Gatlin's 9.74, and also Kashane Thompson's 9.77. But there is one clear and obvious exception, and that is Usain Bolt, who famously hit 41 steps during his 9.58 world record in 2009. But Gout Gout has also famously hit 41 steps during a 100-meter performance, displaying the kind of rare, smooth, and powerful stride length that the greatest of all time also possessed. But what about this race in 2026? How many steps did he take here during his 10-second performance? Well, he actually took about 42.5 steps. This doesn't necessarily represent a good or a bad thing, since again this was a season opener, and he clearly is still pushing his body to make improvements. But he is still taking less total strides than many of the greatest sprinters in history in the men's 100, and perhaps a slightly quicker, more rapid stride pattern in the opening 60 will help him reach the opening stages quicker, and then he can do what he does best, which is open his stride and bury the competition over the second half. Analyzing Gout's running and split times is an absolutely fascinating exploration, and I would be willing to wager that the next time Gout goes for a quick time in either the 100 or the 200, he will finally take down the 10 or 20 second barrier. But that assumes again that the wind will be a legal wind, which it's about time he gets a solid race with legal wind, because the wind gods just do not want Gout to get that 9-point or that 19-point with legal wind. And breaking down his true potential, I think with decent conditions, his very next 100 will certainly result in a sub 10-second clocking. If he can simply get good conditions, he could go as low as 9.95 or 9.94. I really do think it's possible. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.